is one of those moments where things take a wild turn right when you least expect it. We're talking about Karoline Leavitt, a rising political figure known for her fiery opinions, and Mark Carney, the well-known economist and former governor of the Bank of England. But the twist here, it's not about policy or economics, it's personal. Karoline made some pretty sharp comments about Mark Carney's wife in a public setting, and let's just say, she wasn't prepared for what happened next. This trauma unfolded live, and it left everyone, including Karoline herself, completely stunned. It all started during a high-profile panel discussion on economic policy and global leadership. Karoline, always ready to make bold statements, was on the panel along with a few other experts. Things were running smoothly until the conversation shifted to the influence of powerful couples in shaping economic decisions. That's when Karoline, out of nowhere, made a remark that many found unnecessary and offensive. She questioned the role of Mark Carney's wife, suggesting that her involvement in charity work was just a way to ride on her husband's fame. The audience gasped. Even the other panelists looked taken aback by Karoline's bluntness. You could feel the tension rising in the room. Karoline, noticing the reaction but staying confident, doubled down on her comment, saying that too often spouses of powerful figures try to act like they have the same level of influence when they actually don't. She claimed that Mark's wife was a classic example of this and laughed it off as if it were a joke. But no one else was laughing. Unknown to Karoline, Mark Carney was actually in the building. He hadn't been scheduled to appear at the event but had decided to stop by unannounced to support a colleague. As news of Karoline's remarks quickly spread backstage, Mark heard what had been said. Instead of ignoring it or sending a representative, Mark decided to handle it head-on. He quietly asked the organizers if he could step in for a few minutes. They, sensing the potential fireworks, agreed immediately. Meanwhile, Karoline continued the discussion as if nothing had happened. She seemed completely unaware that Mark was about to walk on stage. The moderator, with a mix of nerves and excitement, suddenly announced that there was a surprise guest joining the panel, none other than Mark Carney himself. The audience erupted in applause, and Karoline's confident smile quickly faded into a look of pure shock. Mark walked up calmly, greeting the other panelists and shaking hands with the moderator. Then, turning to Karoline, he offered a polite but unmistakably firm nod. The tension in the room was electric. Everyone was waiting to see how Mark would address the insult. Karoline, for the first time in the entire event, looked genuinely uncomfortable. She shifted in her seat and avoided direct eye contact with Mark, clearly realizing things had just gotten real. Mark, maintaining his usual calm and measured tone, thanked the panel for letting him join unexpectedly. Then, without missing a beat, he addressed Karoline's comments directly. He said, "It's interesting to hear perspectives about my wife from someone who has never met her or understands the depth of her work." The audience went silent, hanging on his every word. He continued, "Her charitable efforts have impacted thousands of lives, and she's earned every bit of respect on her own merit." Karoline tried to interject, starting with a nervous laugh, saying, "Oh, I was just making a point about influencia broken bar," but Mark wasn't done. He calmly raised his hand to pause her and added, "Criticism is fair in the public sphere, but let's ensure it's informed and respectful. Reducing a person's years of dedication to mere association is not only inaccurate, it's unfair." The audience burst into applause, showing their support for Mark's composed but powerful response. For a moment, Karoline sat there speechless. She opened her mouth as if to say something but quickly closed it again, clearly out of her depth. The moderator, sensing the awkwardness, tried to steer the conversation back to economic topics, but the moment had already made its mark. The rest of the discussion continued, but you could tell the energy had shifted completely. Karoline, who had started the session so confidently, now seemed visibly deflated. After the event wrapped up, clips of the confrontation started circulating on social media. Within hours, it went viral. People couldn't stop talking about how gracefully Mark handled the situation and how visibly rattled Karoline had become. Hashtags like #MarkCarney and #CarolineSpeechless started trending, and news outlets quickly picked up the story, analyzing every second of the exchange. public opinion was overwhelmingly in Mark's favor. Many praised him for standing up for his wife with dignity and facts rather than anger. Commentators noted that his response was a masterclass in how to address personal attacks in a public forum. On the other hand, Karoline faced a wave of criticism, with people accusing her of crossing a line and making personal digs where none were needed. Karoline's team quickly moved into damage control mode. A spokesperson released a statement saying that Karoline's remarks were taken out of context and that she never intended to disrespect anyone personally. But by then, the damage was already done. People had seen the clip, and no amount of spin seemed to be working. The narrative had already been set. Interestingly, Mark's wife, who was the subject of the original insult, later made a brief public statement herself. She thanked everyone for their support but added that the focus should remain on the charitable causes they were both passionate about. Her graceful response only added to the respect people had for the Carney family and showed a level of class that didn't go unnoticed. Meanwhile, analysts began debating whether this incident would have any lasting impact on Karoline's political career. Some argued that in today's climate, even controversies like this can be shrugged off over time. Others believed that this showed a side of Karoline that voters might not easily forget as someone quick to judge and slow to admit mistakes. In the days that followed, both Mark and his wife continued with their work as usual, showing that they weren't going to let a single comment derail their focus. Karoline, however, kept a much lower profile. Reports suggested that she cancelled a few scheduled interviews and public appearances, possibly to let the controversy die down a bit. One interesting angle that emerged from the media coverage was the discussion about the role of spouses in public life. Experts debated whether it's fair to criticize or even comment on the work of a public figure's partner, especially when that partner is involved in meaningful projects. The general consensus seemed to be that while scrutiny comes with the territory, personal attacks are a step too far. This entire episode also became a case study in crisis management. Public relations experts pointed out how swiftly and effectively Mark and his wife handled the situation as sticking to facts, showing dignity, and refusing to be dragged into a war of words. It was a reminder of the power of composure and grace under pressure. In later interviews, when asked about the incident, Mark downplayed the drama, saying he hoped people would focus on more important issues. That calm and humble attitude only endeared him more to the public. Karoline, on the other hand, avoided the topic altogether, perhaps realizing that any further comment might just reignite the backlash. So, what started as an offhand insult ended up becoming a viral moment that showed the true colors of everyone involved. It was a powerful reminder that words have weight, especially when spoken in public forums. And it also proved that sometimes, the best way to respond to negativity is with quiet strength and undeniable facts. What's your take on this showdown? Do you think Karoline crossed a line? Or was it all part of the rough and tumble world of politics? And how do you rate Mark's response? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest stories shaking up the public stage. Until next time, stay sharp and stay respectful.